Since my last tier list video, there's been so many TLCs, so many dinosaur stat updates and more, affecting all the dinosaurs in the game individually. So let's go ahead and make a new one. Let's get right into it. We're starting things off with a Kywekia. Now, a Kywekia recently, as of the May update, it got some vast buffs and massive combat weight nerf as well, which ultimately I think is countering the buffs, but the buffs then counter the nerf. Either way, a Kilo won't be the most incredible solo dinosaur. If you're wanting the tier list for solo dinosaurs, a Kilo won't be your bet. However, when you get this thing with Latinovenatrixes and Deinonychuses, you can make this thing strong and the surrounding dinosaurs strong. For example, you could equip Mob Boss to increase the damage of all of those little guys by up to 17.5%, or even go down Warcry as well, which further increases armor and stamina recovery of all nearby small raptors in your group. This thing equally can now pounce smaller creatures because of the buffs to its pounce. However, I do think this is a highly situational dinosaur. It's going to go straight into B. It's middle of the road. Now, if I were to say here, just straight off the bat, I would say, B is balanced, right? It's middle of the road, very middle of the pack. A and S are like above that, and then C is kind of just below balance, and anything further than that you don't want to be in. Speaking of something that will be going into C, Alioramus is going there straight away, and we're going to be talking about this. This thing has great mobility. It's one of the more mobile playables in the game, especially carnivores. However, I think it desperately needs an ability TLC, and it's starting to feel like it needs one. It's still a great all-rounder. It just needs some more love. So I don't think it's like, middle of the road, straight as like a good balanced playable. I think it's just below that, and I think once it gets its TLC, it's just going to go even further. Speaking of something that doesn't have a TLC, but I think is actually pretty decent. Now, I don't know where I'm going to put it, either B or A. It's Allosaurus. We're going to have a quick talk about it. It is limited on its kit. Allosaurus, however, has been in a good space since the introduction of fresh blood into its ability kit. While its attacks all do bleed, this then helps further because the fresh blood buffs damage to bleeding dinosaurs. Allosaurus also benefits from decent stamina regen and overall stamina, which makes it fairly versatile. Now, if you then compare it to other free slots, Piknosaurus and Dasptosaurus, I think Dasptosaurus definitely outshines it, especially after Dasp's TLC. And with Allo's TLC being quite a way away, with Matt saying it could be coming before the GTA 6 release, we've still got a long way until then. So, I think for now, it's either an A or a B. And I don't know what to do with it. It's good. It's really good, but do I put it into B? I think it's definitely like top of B, low A. For now, let's just put it into B, and then we'll change things at the end. Ceratosaurus is a great all-arounder as a 2-slot carnivore. It's got decent mobility, good damage output as well for what it is. It's got good attacks like the Swerve, and the reintroduction of Fracture to its arsenal allows it to have decent versatility as well. The introduction of hides like Solid Frame and Robust Jaws, which allows you to pick between increased health or increased damage, is pretty good too. Do I put it into A or B? I would say its current kit as a playable is above Allo's. It's more versatile. It's got more options. Speaking of something that is going to go into C, it's Concavenator. The same case as Alio. It really needs an ability TLC to further exemplify it as a playable. Yes, it has fresh blood, which is really good, but once again, it is quite squishy. It feels a little bit like a glass cannon. It's quite mobile, but it definitely feels like it's hard fought, right? If you go up against a Cerato or an Alio as a Concavenator, you're probably going to be outshone a little bit there. So I do think Concavenator goes into C, just below B tier. We're going to talk about our first S tier dinosaur now, another carnivore. Of course, we're doing all the carnivores first. This is Dasptosaurus. Out it goes into S tier. Easily, in my eyes, this is the best third slot carnivore, and I've enjoyed this one so much. The mobility of this isn't bad either. Yes, it's probably a little bit worse than Allosaurus's mobility, but it does counteract that with being able to fracture and bone break its opponents. It has its bite being in a passive slot, which means you could pick other great head slot abilities while having that normal bite. My favorite is to go down heavy bite and piercing bite. However, the other options are good as well. Speaking of a dinosaur that as a solo player you're mainly reduced to be harassing, it's Deinonychus and Latinovenatrix. Let's start with Deinonychus. This with Lucky Feather and strong grip now and double jump makes it more versatile and more mobile, well than Latinovenatrix. However, Latinovenatrix does have the damage over this. It's got a good damage output. It's got good bleed with Mangle, as well as the addition of Ripping Kick, Pounce, and other abilities as well, which make it more of a damage-focused playable compared to that of Deinonychus. It really depends which way you want to go about it, because Deinonychus, definitely, it outshines with that extra with Lucky Feather. It allows it to go off of the ground running because it has that Lucky Feather and it can get that second chance at life, whereas Latinovenatrix doesn't have Lucky Feather, which means it will, in most cases, get shot pretty much easily. Now, where would I place them both? I think they're gonna go into B tier, both of them respectively. You can pick and choose which one you want here. I feel like it's quite interchangeable. Do you want to do more damage but you have more risk on your life? Or do you want to go with more mobility and have that second chance at life with Lucky Feather and other abilities as well, like the one where you can take off a meat chunk from your opponents too? There's a couple good stuff there. Now, Megalania, in my previous tier list, I put it into D tier. And I'll be moving it up. I'll be doing it a solid, but my qualm's still here. I think it's a C tier, maybe on the branch of D tier. It's like, basically, it's below Concavenator and Alio. The issue that I have with Megalania is Venom sucks at the moment. Venom is terrible at the moment, and it needs a change. And I think there's a lot of people out there who agree with me that Venom needs a change. It's a shell of its former self. Remember the release of Megalania, the meta of released Megalania. That thing was a machine, and since then it's been slowly being power crept with updates gone by, and it's just slowly just fell into a sorry state. But speaking of another one that goes straight into C tier, it's Metriacanthosaurus, once again previously put into D tier. Now, while Lambiosaurus is here as one of the best healers in the game, Metri is a decent healer, but it's like it's praying to Lambio gods every night because it wants to become Lambiosaurus, but it just hasn't been able to become Lambiosaurus. It's having an identity crisis. It's been put into the 3 slot category. It's got Pikno, it's got Allo, it's got Dasp, all in the same slot category. All better playables than it. And I think that it just needs more options. It needs more love. It's limited to 3 attacks that you can equip, a bite, a claw, and a tail attack. But then its vocal abilities need the same layout as Lambiosaurus's, and just to spec into that further, and then it probably will shoot up because it just needs that love like Lambio will get. And you know what? Lambio, I will talk about in a moment, but it's way better than Metri. Now up next is Pikno, and I think this dinosaur is being slept on just a little bit. Now the good thing about Pikno, as opposed to other dinosaurs, and one of them I'm talking about later that just got a TLC, is that it doesn't have a limited slot. It's actually got a fair wealth of slots to choose and put abilities into. In fact, for its head, you can equip 2 abilities, and on the back limb, where you need it most, you can also equip 2 abilities, which means that you're not limited with this dinosaur, and I think this is one of the massive strengths with it. So as for that, Pikno, I'm going to put it into A tier. But speaking of something that I think is got a terrible argument for it, and you're going to be surprised with this, it's Sarcosuchus. Normally I'd put it into S and A. I'm not doing it today. It's going into B, and I think this is a case of a dinosaur. It's not even a dinosaur, but it's a case of a playable that is a nearly there playable. It can do everything as well as it can, but in most cases it will fall short. Its mobility isn't the best on land, so chasing anything that escapes out of the water isn't going to happen. You're going to run out of stamina very quickly, and if you're not near the water, you're going to be looking like a deer in headlights. It's hard to use an ambush tool due to the water's visibility and how loud some of its attacks are. You'll know it's coming. It's like a freight train. It still holds good mobility in the water and has decent firepower, but it just isn't fully there yet. And you know when the developers say that it's a creature that is nearly there, and that's the problem they're trying to fix, that it's not really in its best state at the moment. Spinosaurus is up next. It's not going into S tier, as some may think. It's going to sit into A tier. It's a good combatant. It has good knockback through its tail attack, which is extremely surprising to me. It definitely lacks in some ways, however. Its turning is rather poor, and its land mobility is sluggish. In the water, it's okay, but it's nothing to write home about. It's decent. As an Apex, they should be aiming for maybe an S tier. Spino is doing enough to get it into A tier, and I am very curious to see what line they go down with its TLC in the future, because it probably will get one, and it'll probably get a new model, and it'll probably get a bunch of new attacks as well. But speaking of something that has gotten a TLC recently, and one that I am in big favor for, it's Suchomimus. Now, Sucho could go into S tier. I could put it in there, and I could ruin everybody's days and get so many comments about it, but I'm going to put it into A tier for now. I think it straddles A and S tier pretty much. The Sucho TLC has made it a better mini Spino. Better mobility, better kit, new attacks that enhance the dinosaur's bleed output and reduce opponents' bleed heal rate as well. Sucho is mobile both on the land, it's very mobile on the land, and in the water as well. And a group of them definitely can be an issue too. I personally think it's funner now than it was before its change, and this thing was so fun before its change. I think forcing us to choose between using wet or dry gameplay styles is what is putting it down into A for me rather than it being in S, because that can be quite problematic. And it's the same with another playable that I'll be talking about in the future. So Rex recently got a TLC, and that played into the Bone Break reworks as well, and just made this dinosaur excel a bit more. High damage output, and even better if you land that Bone Break attack. Bite being a passive slot allows you to combo it with an option of 3 decent abilities as well. Killing Blows is a good sense comboed with King's Mantle or Tyrant's Presence Hide, as well as the introduction of Shattering Cry and Rampage have meant this dinosaur is really good. Now I want to put it into an S tier. My only qualm with it, however, which makes me unsure, I'm going to put it into S tier, but my only qualm that's making me want to put it into A tier is it's got no more protection for its toesies. It used to have a stomp, which was great for swatting away smaller playables. Now it doesn't. So you have to crouch down and kind of, be at the mercy of those little guys unless they make a mistake. Now, there are still some carnivores we need to talk about. The next is Tyrano Titan. It's going into S tier straight away. This is a highly mobile bleeding apex. It's the most mobile apex in the game. It's like if Allosaurus got everything it wanted and then went, you know what, I want to supersize as well. It's got good stamina drain, but recently it was nerfed. It's got good damage output as well and highly potent bleed. The only downside to this playable is the hunger and thirst depletion rates. Those go down so quickly, which means you're constantly having to hunt. Speaking of some other stuff, we're going to get into 2 creatures that are going straight into D tier. I would steer clear of both of these, Kywekia and Urinosaurus, aside from growing them. And it's not to do with the playables. The playables are probably not that bad. In fact, they're not that bad. Their stats are decent. However, the oceans are so boring. And until the oceans get better, these playables will always be in D tier. Because they've just got each other. There's nothing really to do in the oceans. You're not going to be seeing other people in the oceans because no one goes there. And when you're in the waterways, you then have to compete with semi-aquatics as well, which will trounce these creatures. We are going to talk about Ramperinkus now, and I'm going to put a good case for it. Ramperinkus means you scare me, but it's going into B tier. I'm going to put it at the back end of B tier because it can't do any damage. But while it can't do any damage, I think that's a very big factor that makes it get overlooked by the general player base. It's a very effective support dinosaur or flyer. It's not a dinosaur. You can have the plague. You can give dinosaurs the plague, which effectively acts as crowd control. You can essentially then decrease, obviously, the hunger drain massively from other playables, making them to move about. You can then debuff your opponents, especially with the Bloodsucker ability. But then if you have fishy breath and you go and get a fish and eat it, you can put that fish's buff onto your group. Not many people do that, but that's such a good ability to have. Strong grip as well makes it even more annoying. Why the hell did they even need it? They already have Lucky Feather, but no, now they get strong grip as well, which means they're going to be even more annoying to shake off when they're on you. Thalassodromeus goes into C tier, and it's made me forget about Hatzegopteryx as well, so we're going to talk about Thalassodromeus and then into Hatzegopteryx, but even the devs admit that this has no identity. All it has going for it is one attack. It's got a strictly limited kit. It's not versatile. There's nothing much going for it. It's just resulted in becoming a creature that is just there to annoy people. And for that, it goes into C tier. Ramph is better than it. Speaking of which, I'm going to be talking about hats now because In my last video, I got a little bit of flack about hats, and that's for good reason. I still have my qualms with hats. It's definitely not going to be a D tier like it was before, and I'm going to be saying it's better than Fal in this case now. I have been enlightened by you guys. You made me try out hats and compare it a bit more to Fal, and it has resulted in me changing my opinion. However, my qualm is still there. It feels sluggish, it feels weighty, it's terribly mobile in the air. Its stam regen is equally poor, but it does have attacks that are good for it in the air. Flail and the barrel roll abilities are good, especially when you're dealing with Thalassodromiuses, because you can just outclass them in the air. I'd say it's better than Thalassodromius. I'm probably going to put it into Topper C. I think that's probably the fairer way to do it. Maybe you drop down Fal into D tier, but I don't think Fal is going to, I'm not going to say Fal's unplayable because it is playable. Hats is better than Fal, but I don't think Hats should be a B tier. I think it's just below middle of the road. It could do with some touch-ups to make it better. Now we go into the herbivores, because we're starting off with a brand new creature that got a TLC. This is Alberta Ceratops. All around, this is a solid playable. It's one of my favorite playables in the game. The TLC further enhanced its gameplay. Now, I would have put this into A. I think in my last tier list, I put it into A. And I'm now thinking it's going to go into B tier. And it's because of one thing from its TLC. Before that, I do want to talk about that TLC, because you got the stuff like Block, you got Counter Attack, you got Solid, Thrill, and Vengeful Roar. It's a great playable. You even got Swerve and stuff like that. But my qualm here is they removed the front limb slot, which had Stomp, and then they decided to put it into the back limb and not add an extra slot for the back limb. So you're limited. You're having to choose one of 4 decent abilities, but you can't have them both, especially when one of them was already in the front slot. And it makes it so weird now. And I think that lacks its versatility in terms of what you can do with it, because in most cases, especially on official servers, you can't hot swap abilities. For that, it's going into B tier at the very top. I do like it. It's great playable. The next one is Anodonosaurus. This is a tough nut to crack. It's got its hunker down ability, making this an immobile fortress, but it's kind of kept to it. It's kind of forced into hunker pretty much. To me, it used to be an S tier and maybe an A tier, but it feels like a B or an A at this point. I used to rank this highly purely because of how strong it was, but I've started to feel it feels a bit restrictive. I feel like it relies too heavily on that hunker down ability, and with poor food and water drain rates, it feels like once it's in hunker, you can just starve it out and you have to force it to move. However, the tail slam ability is this dinosaur's saving grace. This is a high damage area, and sometimes you feel like you shouldn't have been hit by it. This attack alone is enough to cause issues, but then comboing it with the hunker down, I feel like it puts it up a notch. And I'm stuck between putting it into A or B. I think I'm going to put it into A for now. And we're going to move into the next playable, which is Amarosaurus. When the Bars Baldy TLC came with the area of effect stuff and Amarosaurus had that massive area of effect range, it would have been an S tier playable. But it's not, because it got nerfed. That being said, it's a very strong dinosaur compared to what it was before. Before, I remember putting it into D or C, saying this thing is in a sorry state. It's not anymore, and it still hasn't had a TLC. I'm going to be putting it into A tier, so well done to the Amarosaurus. And I'm very curious to what its TLC will be like. We're going to move now into the big TLC of the year, and that was Bars Baldia. Its overhaul was great. The problems that I had with it before, especially with it being slow, poor stamina regen, and only good if you're able to land that tail slam, which was 50-50 anyways because it wasn't area of effect. Its weak spots was the front, and it just felt very tail heavy. It feels a lot better now, and I quite like it. And personally, I think with the area of effect updates, it's going to go into S tier. Next, however, is one that I'm going to put into D tier. Now, this isn't a case of it should not be played. Campto is fine in certain circumstances. I love this dinosaur, but it needs an ability TLC. The only thing it has going for it is that it can run away and effectively be a scout or just annoy people. Personally, if I was ranking this based on game modes, however, it would probably go into A or S tier because you can harass capture points and just go to the back lines, especially with your hop away ability. It kind of feels like its weaknesses in the actual game suit it in game modes as an effective support dinosaur. And I think once it gets a TLC, it would go straight up to A tier pretty much. And the other thing is, I don't look like this dinosaur, so guys, stop telling me in streams that I look like Campto. Side by side, there is no similarities. Dinosaurus is next. Recently got a TLC. I'm going to put it straight into A tier. Probably right at the top of A tier. It's got insane knockback now with that backhand ability. Its tail knockback is good as well, and you have an ability that increases your knockback. It means that you're essentially doubled up in terms of knockback protection, which most dinosaurs don't have. It still has a hard time against some of the apexes in the game, especially apex carnivores like Rex or Tyrano Titan, or even Spino if the Spino's playing right, but against lower or sub-apex tiers, it absolutely decimates them and is a worrisome force. Equally, you are forced to kind of pick between wet or dry, same with Suchomimus here, which I think is a drawback to it, because you have to pick and choose depending on if you know you're going to be wet or dry, and you can't hot swap in the heat of action either. Now this one goes straight into S tier. It's Triceratops. This is a tank, and it's still a tank after its ability TLC. Its block ability it has, it doesn't even need to use it that much. You can use it if you want, but you don't even have to. You've got Head Slam and the Headbutt as well, which are great high damage dealing abilities as frontal attack options, to ensuring that you are always covered from the front because no one wants to face you horn on. And with sharpened horns as well, and the ability which allows you to reduce that cooldown, it gets even better. Its mobile turning rate isn't bad, but it's good enough to ensure that your face is always facing your opponents. But as long as you keep your head towards opponents, this thing will always be a monster. And we're going to be talking about the Boxer dinosaur next. This is Mike Tyson in dinosaur form. This is Iguanodon, and it's got some good things going for it since its latest TLC, which was last year. I think since that TLC happened, it's kind of been outshone by other dinosaurs getting buffed. It's kind of been power crept a little bit. I see people still playing it, and I still think it's a very good playable. I think it's probably A or B. You don't want to come up against it. I'm not going to lie, if I saw an Iguanodon, if I was playing as a Fraser or even a Sucho, I probably wouldn't engage with it just because I think they're a pain in the ass. For that, I'm going to put it into A tier, just because I know they are a pain. Kentaurus is next, the mini Stego. It's going straight into B tier. I think it's probably going to go around there, right there in the middle between Allo and a Kentaurus. I think that's probably the best app we're going to be looking at it for that. Now, next we have is Lambiosaurus. I think you know where I'm going to put this. It's going to go straight into S tier. Right at the top, bottom of S tier, because I think this is the best healing option in the game. I think the herbivores have it good with Lambiosaurus being a healer. If they had Metriacanthosaurus as a healer, they'd be like, well, shit, we don't want you anymore. We don't want to play with you anymore. But this thing is literally everything Metri's support abilities wants to be. And it isn't limited to just support either, because it has good attacks with it. It's got the rodeo kick, which is good at shaking opponents off, which does decent damage and good knockback. Its tail attack does decent knockback as well, and damage too. But equally, Lambiosaurus is mobile too. I remember this when it first released. This thing was absolutely useless. I remember when it first released, I was disappointed because it just felt boring to play. Since then, it's came a massively long way, and I think it deserves to be in S tier because it has had such a glow up. Next is an extremely fun playable. We're going to go put it into A tier. It's Pachycephalosaurus. Now, Pachycephalosaurus isn't as incredible as like Piknosaurus because it doesn't have the damage output. It isn't a free slot. It still does fracture, and it does knockback as well. It's pretty decent, and it's very good at dinosaur football, which is something I found recently. It's fun at just headbutting people and causing fracture and running away. It's obviously not got monstrous amounts of damage, and it's not got monstrous amounts of stamina compared to Strufy or Campto, but it's got enough to be annoying and to be something you don't really want to deal with if you're fighting a group of herbivores. I think Pachycephalosaurus overall, it might not have like the heavy damage dealing attacks going for it, but it is just fun, right? It is a fun dinosaur. It's speaking of something that I also think is fun, it's the Gupinator, and that is Megalania. I'm going to put it into B tier, probably around ahead of Kentaurus, probably about here. Actually, I'll probably put it top of B tier. While it's a great all-round playable, it definitely has some drawbacks. It does feel a little bit predictable because you know what you're up against based off your first hit from it. Whether you're going to get paralyzed, you're going to get toxin, or you're going to get venom. If this thing is going for a toxin build, it's going to be a horrible thing to deal with because you can essentially take off 25% of an enemy's health. And then you can either detonate it or just let them get there and combust spontaneously. Toxin is so strong for this, and it's cool to see that it's the only playable that has it. However, it does feel a little bit squishy, and I think that's because it's got an arsenal of aggressive abilities, and it needed a downside, and that is the squishiness, and maybe it's not as mobile. But still, Megalania, great playable. I really like what they've done with it. You know, we're all thinking, how are you going to make a Stego and a Kentaurus hybrid and make it stand out? They've done it with Megalania quite effectively. Speaking of Stego and all that, we're talking about Stego next, because it goes straight into... Oh, shit. It's A or S tier. Chat might be screaming at me because of my decisions here. Could it be A tier? Could it be S tier? Could it be A tier? Could it be S tier? I'm going to put it into S tier, and I might put it down later, but it's one of the least equipped dinosaurs on this list. It's a dinosaur that desperately needs a TLC. The tail attacks do high damage and high bleed as long as you keep your tail to your foes. You don't have much frontal protection, if not any frontal protection, but you've got that decent turning radius anyways, which allows you to keep your tail to your opponents. It then gets better because, like Allosaurus, it has fresh blood, which allows you to increase your damage to bleeding opponents. And since your attacks all deal bleed, you're going to be doing a lot of damage to your opponents. You're always going to be doing more aside from that first hit. I wonder how they'll do the TLC, especially the remodel, and if they will spec into maybe something like venom, hides, or toxin as well. But I don't think they want to steal that spotlight from Megalania. That being said, we move into the final two dinosaurs that are in this game, Straosaurus and Stufomus. Let's start with Stufomus. Strufio goes into the bottom of B. It's far better with its TLC now. It's basically what Camto wants to be. Camto wants to emulate this. It's got the support abilities as well, which means it can properly play like a scout. It actually has variety in terms of its attack options. They're not incredible. You don't have a lot of variety, but you've got more attacks than Camto does. That thing's got 2, I think. 2 or 1. It's terrible. The next one is Straosaurus, and that is also going into B tier, below that of Alberta Ceratops. It definitely needs a TLC, but I still think it's a solid playable. It's a highly capable mobile Ceratopsian bleeder, which equally does decent damage, and will only get better once it gets its TLC. Now, Jiggy has been teasing its TLC with various comments and saying how much she loves Straosaurus, so maybe we're going to get one of the best TLCs for this dinosaur in the future. Now, that is the tier list as it stands. If I were to place the other dinosaurs that haven't released into it, let's start with Microraptor, because Microraptor I think will go and sit alongside Ramperinkus. If Microraptor can do damage, it'll probably go into A tier. If it gets Lucky Feather and Strong Grip as well, it's going to sit comfortably in A tier or high B tier. So for now, I'm probably going to put it there as an average. Tylosaurus will be the best playable in the oceans. If they don't update the oceans, it's going to fall short and go into D tier, probably into C tier, maybe into B tier. I think as aquatics go, Tylo's probably got the best reach in terms of how high it can go in the ceiling of a tier list. Lead Ichthys I think would be probably a C tier as well, because I think it's going to be very lacking in its mobility. It's going to have a very unique gameplay style, but if the developers don't update the oceans, it's going to be very poor. Now, before I end this video, I'm going to talk about maybe some changes to the tier list. Let's have a look, really. Let's talk through them. So Eotrike obviously has to stay there. Is that a Rex or is that a Dasp? It looks like a Rex. No, that is a Dasp. Okay, so Dasp I'm probably going to put down here. Rex is probably going to go up to about there. Barsboldia and Lambio there. Dasp up there as well. Stegosaurus, I think, because it's got that limited kit availability, I'll drop down into A tier. Am I happy with my A tiers? Am I going to like finick with it and make sure like stuff get tweaked? I'll maybe move you there, maybe move you to about there. Amarga's decent. Cerato can drop down behind Pikno. Suko's really good, something like that. As for what's next, Allo, I think Allo has to be top of B tier. In fact, I'll probably put Allo into bottom of A tier. What does this mean for the other ones? Because I've used Allo as a baseline, I still feel that might be fine. The Raptors seem fair. Achillobator seems like a fair choice. Strufio seems fair. And then into C tier, I think you go there, you right at the back. In fact, probably move these down to here. They're okay, so yeah, that's the biggest change there. And maybe you down into here. I think these are like, they just need a TLC, right? These creatures here in C tier need a TLC to get up there. My aim, I would love all dinosaurs to be between B, A, and S. Because then now I have to compare them off different things, which means it's going to be a lot harder to do a tier list when they're all very goodly balanced. That being said, let me know your tier list in the comments down below. If someone does their full tier list, I don't know what I'll do, but I'll be very proud of you. If you do it, you get a cookie. You all get a cookie. But if you can't be asked to do a full tier list, give me your picks for each tier. Like, pick one dinosaur for each tier and explain why. Or tell me your least favorite dinosaur in Path of Titans. That's the question. Which dinosaur do you not want to play as the most? Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Peace.